Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our regular weekly community AMA. For those who don't know me, my name is Marty, also known as Alcatraz. I'm the lead designer at Raini Studios, working on our flagship title, The Lords of Light. How you going today, Draz?
Very well, thank you. Yep, another week. It's nice and cool here in Sunshine Coast in Queensland.
Yeah, nice. Actually, we had a really, I'm up, obviously, or down, I should say, more towards Sydney. Actually had some really nice weather on the weekend.
Yeah,
So actually got to go out and play some pickleball for the first time, which
nice.
is apparently the worst thing you can do to a pickleball person is call it like little tennis. Apparently
Oh
that's just
no,
that's like hugely insulting to them. So
yeah,
to
right.
all of my fellow picklers, I apologize for referring to it as little tennis. Um, Apparently, yeah, I'm a pickler. A pickler now is what we refer to ourselves as.
Right on.
Um, but yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. It was good to get out, touch some grass, get some fresh air. My partner got horribly sunburnt on her back, but
Oh
besides
really?
that, yeah, just forgot to sunscreen, and yeah, that was so yeah, very very red at the moment.
Yeah, we're coming out of winter. I suppose you can sort of get away with being out in the sun a fair bit, but it's getting hotter, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was only like 19 on the weekend, which I have no idea what that is in Fahrenheit,
Mm.
but it's cold. But yeah, no, the sun was out. It was pretty nice weather out there. So
Nice.
yeah, hopefully everyone's having some good weather wherever you happen to be around the world.
Yeah,
And I mean, hopefully you're also playing some digital TCGs in your spare time there as well.
I
So
certainly
yeah,
am.
yeah, a lot going on at the moment. I haven't had a chance to look at the leaderboards today. Let's have a look at RTLOL.com. Pretty sure I'm gonna see. I don't know. We've had some changes up the top of the leaderboard there a little bit. Master Rugby up there. Honcho's in the top 20. Yeah, cool. So yeah, obviously keep in mind you've got that leaderboard there on RTLOL.com. Obviously you've now in the client as well. You can see both the seasonal and the eternal leaderboards as well. So two different leaderboards to fight over. And we'll just keep adding new leaderboards until Nemesaur doesn't win every single one of them, basically. So yeah, we can just keep doing that, and that'll be a bit of fun.
All
So
right.
yeah,
So the Eternal leaderboard is one that's being displayed on there at the
yeah. So
moment. Okay. Yes.
yeah,
Right.
the total leaderboards there. We'll probably update the website to add the seasonal, like do the two side by side or something, or
Yeah.
above and below on mobile. Like the mobile devs look after all that stuff for us.
Nice. Right. Updates every
Um,
5 minutes. Cool.
yeah, yeah. Just that's purely just so we're not like spamming our own back end and basically DDoSing ourselves,
Yeah.
which yeah would not be a fun time.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, cool. Chris will be joining us shortly. He's just stuck in traffic at the moment. It feels weird saying that. It's been a while since we've actually been in a world where I mean, so yeah, we have an office now again in North Sydney, which is awesome. So we're in the middle of getting that all fitted out at the moment. The team was in for a couple, or most of the team was in for a couple of days last week, and yeah, it's really great to be able to do in-person work. Um, it's yeah, like we can do a lot of stuff online. Obviously, over the last several years, a lot of teams have gotten very used to like remote working and using tools like Slack and Kanban and Google Meet and stuff like that. But yeah, there's like especially from a design perspective, like
Yeah.
last week, being able to like sit down at a table with pen and paper and like write ideas down and like just have physical mediums to work with is such a refreshing change.
Yeah, I think the
And yeah,
energy would be a lot different too, wouldn't it? Really, all sort of looking at each other and talking to each other and throwing things up on the board and
oh yeah, and like it's that sort of thing as well where like there's a lot of subtle interactions that only happen when you're face to face with a person, like body language and just and tone and like context around a lot of things. So like Monday, myself and the design team were doing a lot of work on formations, and we're throwing ideas around. We're going, oh, would it be cool if we did this and this, and we actually revealed one of the first formation cards last week, which I'll throw up on screen in a tick if you haven't seen it, or it's on Telegram and Discord as well. Um, but yeah, being able to like someone will throw something out there and you see everyone's like attention like turn and like process the idea. It's like, yes, that's something really cool. And I think So one of the big things that came out of Monday's like marathon design session, like I can't remember what time we got out of the office, but it was late. Um, like there's some really cool stuff coming in formations, obviously. Like we've announced like what the sort of key mechanics in the set will be. There's a lot of smaller mechanics sort of in there as well, also working together. Blue is getting, in particular, is getting some really cool stuff. Which some of that was planned beforehand, but some of it we're taking a little bit further. So yeah, there's just stuff that you just can do so much better physically in the same room as someone. So yeah, definitely keen to keep doing that. Obviously, we won't be in the office every day. We still generally as a team we still prefer working remote when we can. But you know, for example, I'm planning on going down probably early next week. We're doing like a big in-person playtest of the mobile build. So even when we're doing stuff like that, it's so much easier to be able to all physically sit around a table and have all the phones and iPads and everything out. And then if there is a bug or something goes wrong, I mean, you can literally see both devices that are in a game. You can see both perspectives. It allows us to control unknown variables. Like if we're all on the same Wi-Fi connection, there's less likely to be network-related issues. Although we do test all of those as well.
Mhm.
Drop everyone back to like 4G and stuff, and play games like that as well. But yeah, it's been you probably tell it's been years since I've actually been able to do like in-person game dev with everything that's been happening around the world over the last several years. So it's very refreshing to be able to actually do that.
Nice. So the mobile build obviously is progressing along if you're doing these sorts of play tests.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, it's mobile, so there's always going to be like weird bugs we run into. Because obviously there's like different versions of like the Epic SDK and stuff that we're integrating. And sometimes those aren't kept exactly at like feature parity. So like iOS, for example, would have to do some workarounds for the way lobby connections are formed. Just because of some of the restrictions that Apple put on the way you're allowed to connect apps together and stuff like that. We're building out some stuff again for iOS specifically, just around like the what we call the FATUI or the first time user experience,
Yeah.
because Apple has some requirements of what you must do and what you must show to the user before you can ask them to log into a third party service. And obviously, because a big part of our experience is logging into your Epic account, or creating an Epic account to log into, we've got to make sure we handle that correctly. Otherwise, Apple will block it when we go to submit. But yeah, I mean, this is if you've done like iOS dev before or game dev on mobile, like these are all relatively common things. There's stuff we have to do specifically on mobile around what's called IDFA, which is basically the increased privacy and security requirements now that you have to have for mobile games. Basically, any data that we collect during the course of a game, we basically have to make sure that we're collecting it in the right way, making sure it's all anonymous. So like at the moment we track like games that everyone plays, so we can go back and go, oh cool, like Huncho, here's all the games you play. We can go back and look at replays and stuff like that. That data, we now have to specifically ask you for permission to track that data associated with your user account, and even then we basically choose to make it all anonymous anyway, so we know that this player played these games, but we can't then link that back to your specific like Apple ID or your specific iPhone or stuff like that. So it's basically it's a big push that the industry's been making the last several years around privacy and security, which is great. Like that should always be at the top of everyone's concerns, especially when you look at mobile devices and how much personal information they hold. But yeah, it's just making sure that we're doing everything correct from that perspective. There's a lot more to doing a mobile port of a game than just like getting it to run on a mobile phone. Basically, we're doing workarounds, optimization. Um, so we'll do some of that stuff before launch of mobile. Some of that will probably happen after, and it will be like an ongoing sort of process. Because I mean, once we get it out there, we can start getting some ideas of like what sort of devices people are actually running it on. Uh, Android in particular, I know when we put it out there, there'll be weird bugs that we just can't pick out beforehand. Some of the stuff you'll run into is like, oh, if someone's using a specific, I don't know, Bangladesh telco provider, and they've got a specific like model of Samsung phone that they've loaded their own firmware on, that firmware breaks the game or stuff like that. Like mobile, especially Android, there are just so many variables. We try to test as wide as we can, but yeah, there's always going to be just weird edge cases that we miss. But obviously, we'll get on top of those as quick as we can. And then yeah, obviously trying to make sure it runs just as wide as possible on as many as wide a range of devices as possible. Which again is a huge challenge with mobile, because you go back to older, like even the iPhone or Android device, iPhone in particular, you get back to a certain point and all of a sudden like the metal APIs change. Or on Android, like all of a sudden you don't have access to like OpenGL 3, you've got to use 2, and like then it turns out you drop the graphics settings down to a different like API, like graphics API, and half of our cards don't render, or just weird things like that. So it's yeah, it's all coming along nicely. As I said, we've got it running on Android and iOS devices now. So the game is playable in that state. Like I said, there's a bug we're working on today where for some reason the game works fine on desktop, but the exact same version of the game on a phone, the battle pass breaks when it's pulling in the new battle pass information from the server. So that's what we're looking at, like straight after this, basically. That makes no sense. That shouldn't happen, but that's mobile development in a nutshell.
A
If
lot
I
of
had an
your experience is mobile, though. You've come from a background of mobile development.
Yeah, so I mean, I've given my, actually, I think on the new Raini.io, I actually have like a little, I think I actually got like a little thing in the About Us page on here. I can't remember if that went live or not. Hey, there I am. Yeah, cool. I'm actually on the About Us page for Rainy.io now. But yeah, no, my background has been in mobile for the better part of a decade, I would say. I actually started out my gaming career as a solo indie game dev. I say solo, working with a designer who I still work with to this day. He's brilliant. I'm not going to dox him, but yeah, Chris knows who he is. Hey, Chris.
Good
But yeah,
morning.
no.
How you doing?
Hi, Chris.
How's the office Wi-Fi today?
Hey, hey. Who are you gonna do? Yeah, it's fine. It's pretty stable. It's a beautiful view. So happy to be here. Who were you talking about not doxing?
The designer that we're
Hard
working,
to answer that, huh?
the designer I work very closely with, who is assisting on formations. But yeah, just saying, like I've worked with that person for
Sure.
probably over a
Fair
decade.
enough.
But yeah, Draz, to answer your question, yeah, I started doing mobile dev a long time ago. Did a lot of like started out my career doing a lot of really bad mobile games. But they're all learning experiences. And then yeah, when I was working as a consultant for many other years, yeah, my focus was always on mobile design and like monetization, economy design, stuff like that. So yeah, mobile's always going to be near and dear to my heart. Especially if you actually, there's a public report. If you search for data.ai, I'll drop it in the chat actually. They do a yearly report called the State of Mobile Gaming. If you're interested in gaming as a business, definitely check this out, because these guys are one of the biggest resources for just data relating to mobile gaming. And yeah, if you have a read through that, you'll see some of the metrics around mobile gaming. It's by far, like mobile gaming generates over 100 billion in revenue per year. You compare that to even like desktop and console, which I think sits around 40 billion. So it's magnitudes bigger. And mobile is bigger than like Hollywood, TV, and music combined. It's just yeah, it's a huge sort of industry. And even if you go like through the report, they have I can't remember what they call it, but it's basically like the billionaires club. So it's games that generate over 1 billion in revenue per year. I think there's 8 now mobile games that generate over 1 billion. Candy Crush being the first one, obviously. But Pokemon Go will be on that list. Probably Clash Royale, I want to say, of the Supercell games. Might be Brawl Stars even. I'm not sure. But yeah, just very, very interesting read there if you are interested in the business of gaming and mobile gaming specifically.
Sweet. I'll check it out.
A lot of pretty graphs too. They know how to put together good looking reports, so everything moves and there's like cool animations and stuff like that too, which is always fun. But yeah, so yeah, as I said, mobile dev is full speed ahead. The team's starting to work from the office when we have the opportunity to do so, which is great. Obviously, everything's on track for the World Championships. We've got the promotion that will be going ahead with a very well-known Hearthstone personality. I know, Chris, I think you sent all the final stuff off to this particular person. I think it was yesterday. So they've got everything they need to put together some really cool content for us, which would be great.
What sort of volume of content would that person be putting out? Are they doing it for an extended period of time?
We're starting.
Yep. Sorry,
Yeah, we're starting with one video, or
Yep.
a spot in one video, basically. When you realize who this person is, you'll understand that even getting a shout out from this person is not the cheapest thing in the world.
Right.
Yeah, it's at that sort of scale. But yeah, we'll start with one. We'll see, again, like we've always said, we'll see what sort of results we get from that. If the results are worthwhile, we'll keep going. If not, then we'll look at other marketing opportunities. Because yeah, we've done a bunch of different marketing efforts, obviously, since launch. We did some stuff with Morpheus, IndieGG, and some other just miscellaneous stuff with like Google Ads and that. Some of which moved the needle, some of which unfortunately didn't. That's okay. That's how you learn what works in the market. And yeah, we'll obviously always keep looking at the data, looking at the results, and we'll keep going from there.
Are we still on track for the World Cup happening in this new schedule now? That's like with regard to things like that, at RST and all that sort of thing. It's still on track for the end of September.
Yes, everything with the World Championships is all on track. I've actually got a meeting with Merit Circle tomorrow to go over the specific marketing efforts around the World Championship, which will be good. There'll be a lot of stuff sort of coming up. If you've following us on our socials, you would have noticed that we're stepping up our Twitter Space game. We did a couple of those last week, which was pretty fun. But yeah, there'll be a lot more stuff obviously leading up to the World Championships. On the RST front, I'll let Chris sort of take that one because I know you've been doing a lot of stuff with that, specifically with the audit as well.
Is there anything that could delay the World Cup foreseeably?
I don't want to say nothing, but nothing to the best of my knowledge, no.
Yep.
Everything's pretty much locked in now. Like I said, we pushed it back by a month just to give us a bit more time primarily for marketing efforts,
Yep.
and just to make sure we didn't have that heavy overlap where we were trying to get the season 1 patch out, and then have the World Championship sort of hitting at the same time. As a relatively smaller team in gaming, we're not hundreds of people, obviously. We've just got to make sure that we are obviously prioritizing our resources and putting our resources where they need to be at the right time. And yeah, obviously that means just sometimes things have to happen a bit more sequentially than sort of all sort of landing on top of each other.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, Chris, if you want to touch on the RSC stuff.
Yeah, sure. So hopefully my net is stable enough. We have had some problems with the office Wi-Fi, just in case I cut out. But we did get the audit back yesterday, and it was all clear. No unexpected issues. It was basically exactly in line with what we were expecting. We're going to send the source out, who are the company doing the audit, formerly Solidity Finance, a little bit more data just so that they can expand the audit. But we're in a place where we could publish the initial results if anyone wants to see it. So we'll be doing that at some point this week, even if they haven't updated it with the last few expansions that we want them to make. So it's really good to have the audit done. The Web3 and full stack dev team have been working hard on the rollout of the Web3 side of the equation. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's been happening there, like that has been pushed to the Beam mainnet already, and we're just testing it. So it's not like it's stalled, it's not like it's delayed. It's just we want to make sure that we've got a whole bunch of stuff pushed and thoroughly tested before we open it up to the community. I guess the big point of difference between a Web3 rollout and a game rollout is the immutability of a lot of the aspects. So you have to be very careful and make sure it's all thoroughly tested. I did see some comments on the delay of the Web3 rollout and some other aspects. I guess the other complicating factor that we found here is just we're like one of, if not the first games to launch on Beam. So it's a brand new subnet. If we were launching on ETH, then it would have been a lot easier. We're hitting a lot of snags that are honestly just beyond our locus of control. There's just stuff that for a new blockchain, as you'd expect, They have their teething problems, we have our teething problems. So when they're all together, it's a bit compounded, and it does result in more delays than we'd otherwise like. But the net effect is that we're going to be on, the Beam subnet, which has much cheaper gas, and we're going to have a lot of support from Merit Circle, and we can do all the stuff with introducing Web 2 users without asking them to set up MetaMask or anything like that. So the ultimate, I guess, end game is going to be worth it. It just means we have to work through some more items than we otherwise would have.
Yeah, I mean, you say like, if we were on ETH, we wouldn't have these problems, but I just spent like $70 on gas to make a $20 ETH transfer. So I'm pretty happy to wait until we actually have like, everything up and running on Beam. I can't imagine just any project that's launching on ETH in 2023 just feels like a mistake to me. But I mean, that's just not financial advice. Do your own research, personal opinion, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I think ETH, you have to have a very particular project where it makes sense, where like security is prioritized far above efficiency. So it's usually something with like a low amount of transactions. If you're building a game that runs on a blockchain, then we're expecting a lot of transactions. It just wouldn't make sense. If we wanted to launch on ETH, then we could have had a lot more stuff done by now. But we're making the decision that is like better for the long term rather than like the short sugar hit. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much where we're at. The good thing with doing weekly AMAs is we don't actually have that much to talk about because we give the updates every week. But yeah, so World Championship on schedule, RST's on schedule, mobile is in development and being tested. Just random bugs that's always going to happen with mobile developments. Yeah, can probably jump into the questions, Draz. Unless any other particular like high level areas that I'm missing.
I don't think so, mate. I mean, it's like you said, it's all the RST stuff's moving along in the background. World Cup's still on schedule. Those are the two primary things I suppose people are really asking. But they're all happening, obviously. It's just some other things, I suppose. If we could just go through these questions, I suppose. If you look at HZOJ, so I'm not sure how to pronounce your name there, HZOJ. There's other people who have asked the same question, but do they have a date on when they'll be getting the leaderboard rewards from season 0 and a breakdown, I suppose, especially for the top 20 when they're on-chain rewards, what they'll be getting? Or
so
anybody for that matter, what they're getting.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the delay around that was because we were hoping to be able to send out all of the on-chain rewards specifically to your Beam wallets. Obviously, there's been some delays with Beam getting that side of things up and running. At the very least, we can send out all of the. At the very least, I'll make sure that we this week we send out all of the soulbound rewards, and I'll make sure that the actual breakdown gets released as well. So I'll make sure that all goes out this week.
Okay, cool.
Like it's all been calculated, but yeah, I'll go back over it, make sure it's all looking good, and then yeah, we might even look at potentially doing it like into AVAX wallets or something like that potentially for the top 20 if there's gonna be much more of a delay on Beam. But yeah, I'll keep everyone updated on Telegram for that one.
I think as long as I mean, if you were able to tell them what they're getting, no point doing another step like the AVAX stuff, as long as people can wait. I mean, I'm sure they could wait if they know what's coming and they know it is coming, just waiting a little bit on Beam rather than just sort of complicate things by having to go, somewhere else. Personally,
I mean, So the current breakdown and rewards. So like I said, top 100 will be getting coins. Top 15 get Lux. Basically for Nemesaur, who won, he'll get 2 full sets of on-chain promo cards. So 2 Blockfathers, 2 Chad Doge, 6 Campi Pandas, 6 Avalanche, 6 Chubby Aliens. So 2 full sets there. Up to him what he chooses to do with that. Obviously, with the rental systems coming at some point, you can definitely hang on to them for that or whatever he likes. Second place is undo the change. Second place, 1 full set of on-chain promo cards, and then basically down to like top 10 is basically just so you still get some on-chain promo cards, but just slightly less. And then 11 to 20 will get some of the rares, so Campi Pandas, Avalanche, Chubby Aliens. They'll also get some Soulbound promo packs. for basically 11th to 20th gets a mix of Soulbound and on-chain promo cards. And then, obviously, we're still giving some rewards out from 21st down to 100th, but they're just going to be on-chain. Oh, sorry, they'll all be just Soulbound rewards. So, mostly coins, and there's some just set packs in there as well.
Cool.
One thing I will mention, so for anyone who is in the top 20, if you would prefer to receive Soulbound rewards as opposed to on-chain rewards, just send me a message and we can send those out as Soulbound instead. Personally, wouldn't be recommending that, but obviously aware that if someone is just a Web2 player and doesn't want to deal with any of the on-chain side of things, they just want to be able to play the game, we're happy to look after that as well, basically.
Okay, sweet. And just go down again a little bit there, HZOJ. I'd also like to ask around the current state of XP gain and if changes coming up personally as it stands. I think sorry, I'm not reading this very well, am I? Basically, we started out with the normal sort of one. First win of the day was high XP, but now you guys have moved the XP predominantly to daily and weekly quests. Basically, how do you find that's working? And do you feel the need to tweak it?
Yeah, that's a good question. And like I said, we don't always comment on chat. Some of us like to have our weekends off occasionally, but we are always reading the feedback and comments of what everyone is saying there. And we are always looking at the data on the back end as well. So we did obviously for season 1 move the rewards to be more heavily focused on the daily and weekly quests. We also moved the rewards from wins to games played as well. Which I'm not sure many people noticed that difference, but we actually shifted some of the rewards basically from one column to the other. Basically as a way to not punish people who maybe choose to play every day, but maybe don't always get a win of the day and stuff like that. It's a little bit more of a flat payout and obviously more stuff going to the quests. At this stage, we're definitely keeping an eye on it and gathering data. Like I said, at this stage, there's still people who are well on track to hit level 100 in this season. So like I've seen some comments, people going like, "Oh, it's impossible to hit level 50." It's not. And as Ray, as we were chatting about before the start of this as well, we also, when we design a battle pass system, to hit level 50 should feel like an accomplishment. It should take like some level of concerted effort to do so. If we had a battle pass system where every single player without any effort whatsoever can hit level 50, then there's actually no point having a battle pass system in that case. And would need to reduce the rewards in the battle pass if every single person is hitting it without any sort of effort there. But we'll definitely keep an eye on it. If it is looking like a lot of players may not be able to, keep in mind the season runs for 3 months, so it is much longer than the season 0 battle pass. So as a result of that, if you're hitting a level every day, again, that's 50 days out of the 90 that you will hit it basically. So that's relatively straightforward there. But we'll definitely keep an eye on it. If it's looking like a lot of players are going to maybe miss level 50, what we will probably be more likely to do is we'll run like a double XP weekend or something like that. Like we'll actually make like an event out of it to give people a way to sort of catch up. But at this stage, we're monitoring XP gain at this stage and the quest as well.
On level 10 of the Lux Pass, it's got the XP boost. What does that do for you?
It's a 50%. How long? Yeah, I realize it's not actually super clear what that is. So it'll be a boost for 7 days. It's the same as Season 0. It basically gives you a 50% XP boost when you activate it. So
Season 0 was 50, was it?
Yeah, Season 0 was 50%, but it was a little bit unclear because everyone or most people who hit that also had the 300% XP boost running as well. So you would have noticed during like a week of Season 0, instead of getting 200k for your first win, you were getting 250k. That 50k was the 7-day XP boost, basically.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought that was a percentage on top of the total, and so it was less. But okay, I see.
Yeah, no, when we do XP systems like that, we do them as additive, just to be on the, like, honestly, it's to be on the safe side, because if we get the math wrong or if we have a different boosts that stack on top of each other, I've worked on battle pass systems before where you could literally like finish a battle pass in like a game or two because the team got the math wrong. So yeah, with XP systems like that, they will always be additive, not multiplicative.
No, I'm sure some of our guys that are playing this game would find that and abuse the
No,
if it was there.
you don't mean our players would look for exploits in the game? No, come on.
No, they just
wouldn't do that.
maximize the potential. Basically, is what I'm
Oh,
saying.
absolutely. Yeah.
So it's 50% XP boost for 7 days.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
I'm sure it's 7. It was. I know
It
we were
was
talking
7
about
days last time, I think. Yeah. I don't
I'm
know where it said
pretty
that.
sure
but,
it was 7 days,
sure
but yeah.
Okay. Cool. In summary, weekly quests. I think we mentioned this in sort of one of the chats, but they, for some reason, I thought once you finished a weekly quest, the next day it might reset and you get a new weekly quest. But basically, weekly quests are available once per week if you do them within that time frame. Otherwise, it could drag out a little bit further if you're not finished. And then after the time expires, it's supposed to reset to the next weekly quest.
Yeah, so we're probably gonna have a look at how weekly quests regenerate. At the moment, they regenerate basically once a week, and if you've locked it, then obviously it will just that quest will stay around for the following week, to basically give you a chance to actually complete it. What we'll most likely look at doing is we'll actually there's a system we have in the back end that basically at midnight, I mean, it already runs a system at midnight UTC to regenerate all of your daily quests. We might look at it where basically it will look at your weekly quests as well. And if you haven't received a new weekly quest for at least a week, then it will generate a new one if you finished the previous one. So it'll basically more of like a rolling week sort of system. You won't be able to get a new weekly quest more than once within a 7-day window. Just otherwise it's basically a daily quest at that point. And the whole idea of the weekly was that it allows us to put bigger quests in with bigger rewards. But yeah, we might just look at how that actually regenerates at the moment, because yeah, obviously it wouldn't be an issue if we didn't have the locking system there. You would know that, okay, you've got to finish it in the week, and every week it sort of resets. We wanted to build that lock in for both daily and weeklies, just to make sure that if there was one that you got really close to finishing, you were able to lock it and make sure you completed it within the time. Although having said that, most people are closing out the quests within the 24 hours for the dailies at least, so it's not too bad. But yeah, we just wanted to have that there to give players a bit more flexibility in how they choose to play.
Sure. If I've noticed this, I'm not sure, but if a quest is locked, and not redeemed, most definitely. If you don't redeem a quest, it doesn't reset. You have to redeem it, obviously. But if it was locked and redeemed, would your checks sort of reset it for you?
Yeah. So as soon as a quest is redeemed, as far as we're concerned, that's an empty slot at that point.
Okay.
Cool. So as soon as you the next 24 hours for a daily or the next 7 days for a weekly at the moment, that should reset regardless. The locking is basically just for an incomplete quest, basically telling the system, hey, don't touch this one until the player has completed it, or until you choose to unlock it again.
Yeah, cool. I think if, like you're sort of indicating, if the weekly quest was only checked once a week, if you can make it check, like you say, every day, as long as it's been there for a week, and then reset it, that'd be good, because otherwise you're waiting potentially 2 weeks if you just missed the cutoff of the expiry. But that'd be great. Yeah. All right. There was a few questions around the matchmaking. People saying, for example, Telby, how can a player ranked 61 be matched against the top 5 players on the leaderboard just after a few seconds in joining a game? They thought it was 45 seconds, and then you try to match against, etc. So, and there seems to be a bit of that. A lot of the lower players are getting matched against higher players in a very quick time frame. How does that happen?
So yeah, this was actually we improved the system, and we probably didn't communicate it as well as we should have. So with the matchmaker now, it actually looks at what we call the CCU count, so the concurrent player count, which is basically how many players are actively online in the game at any given time. If that number is below a certain threshold, we ignore MMR and basically just try to get you into a game as quickly as possible. The motivation behind that basically is the general thought process that you would rather get into a game regardless of who the opponent is than sit there and not have access and sit there for 45 seconds or a minute and not get into a game. We did also, before we made that change, we also had reduced the timer down for MMR because we were finding that players after like a minute to a minute 30 were dropping out of queue. Like there was a pattern we noticed of players dropping out of queue and rejoining at around that 60 to 90-second mark. I don't know, to try and reset and find more opponents maybe. But that obviously reset the timers around how long it was until we matched them up with someone. So there were situations we were watching where there would be multiple people online in queue and none of them would actually find each other, which from our perspective is a negative experience. Like if you're trying to find a game and you can't find a game, you'll just assume that, okay, there's no one online and you'll drop out. It's not great for the user experience. But when we had that happening, when there were multiple people in the matchmaking queue at the same time, that's even worse, technically, because then it feels like no one's online, but there's people like, I saw times where people were like in Telegram going like, oh, I'm looking for a game, there's no opponents, and I can see multiple people queuing at the same time. So yeah, if there are a certain number of players actively looking for games at any given time, we're just going to basically match them up regardless. Because and keep in mind, the whole point of the MMR system is that if you do beat someone who is higher ranked than you, you will get a huge boost in MMR, and that person will actually drop down quite drastically as well. By the same token, if you lose to that person, your MMR will barely be affected as a result. So that's and the person who wins will barely get like a boost at the other end as well. So that, like I said, the MMR system does technically make that fairer. Obviously, can make it a little bit harder if you're going for like wins of the day and stuff like that. But yeah, the motivation behind that is just to get players into games as quickly as possible. Since we made that change, we actually noticed, so we actually keep accounts on the back end of like number of simultaneous games that are running. We literally just count how many servers are spun up at any given time. And that number has gone up pretty significantly since we made this change to the MMR, to the matchmaking system. So from that perspective, I would look at it as a success. There are more games being played, which is, always a metric of success, basically. So yeah. But yeah, again, we'll always keep an eye on these systems. We'll always take it under take player feedback. But yeah, at the moment, when we are dealing with a relatively low player population, we're generally going to lean towards getting you into a game as opposed to trying to match you against the perfect opponent.
Cool. Nemosaur pasted a bunch of questions in one of the chats there, but just asking, I think Nemosaur and Huncho were sort of nutting out in one of the chats there a bug to do with Nifty, and so you guys see those sort of bugs when they report them. Obviously, you're in the chats and you see them. How long does it take you to fix a bug like that? Do you know?
How long is a piece of string?
Yeah, I know, it depends on the bug.
Depends on the bug. If it's something straightforward, that can be something we can fix very, very quickly. Sometimes we get lucky and those fixes are actually what we call a server-side fix. So it's something we can actually fix by just rolling out a new server to the back end. Doesn't always happen that way. Quite a lot of the time, the clients will need to be updated as well. So generally for those, we might get them fixed pretty quickly, but we wait until we've got enough stuff ready to go to actually roll out a whole new version. Again, depending on the priority of the bug as well. If it's more just like a UI UX sort of issue, that's relatively lower. If it's something that can like crash the game or break the game state in some way, that obviously is a higher priority for us to fix. I saw that one getting chatted about last night. We've already handed that off to QA to get us. So, I mean, this might be interesting to people. To give you an idea of what happens when bugs like that come through, like the actual process that we go through. It's not really a trade secret. It's pretty common, or at least how we deal with them. We'll either see that get reported in Telegram or Discord, or we'll see bug reports coming through. Our head of QA generally starts their day going through those bug reports that sort of come through, weeding out the ones that are actually bug reports. Quite often there'll be ones where it's like, oh, I lost to China ban or crypto ban. And it's like, well, that's not a bug. You just suck at the game. Those ones we can't help, unfortunately. But yeah, when we do see reports come in, generally speaking, we get the full match replay, both at the point in time where the bug report was sent and then the full like server log, so we can see what happened after the report was sent as well. Our QA team will go through and basically try and generate what's called a repro case. So they'll basically try to work out steps to be able to consistently recreate the issue, which quite a lot of the time can be one of the hardest parts in actually breaking down these sort of bugs. Obviously, when we've got replays from players, it helps because we can like literally go, all right, if we just watch the replay through, do we see like an error or a bug get thrown, or like does the server crash, or does something happen? But quite a lot of the time, we'll get people reporting a bug, and it could be related to their hardware, could be related to their internet connection. It could just literally be. We had one happen a few nights ago where the game basically went down for 3 hours from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. Sydney time. It was a couple of days ago. I can't remember exactly which day it was. Our systems were fine. PlayFab, one of our backend providers, was fine. Azure, who is our other backend provider, was fine. It looks like what was happening was that just a bunch of the connections between America and Europe went down. And basically, a lot of routers were getting overloaded, and just packets were getting lost, and just basically the internet turned to shit for a few hours. It wasn't like a lot of other games were affected at the same time. A lot of websites were affected at the same time. And yeah, there's unfortunately we looked at it afterwards. We're like, okay, cool. Like, what could we have done here? And the answer is nothing. We're an internet-based game. Short of flying every single person that wants to play RTLOL to an island in the Bahamas and running like Cat5 cables between every laptop, there's gonna be internet-related issues that we can't deal with. So yeah, that one was fun to look into, but yeah, unfortunately, not much we could do there. Once QA's got a repro case for us, we hand it off to the dev team, depending on, and like the person that gets assigned to will generally come down to where the bug is. So there's like some of our developers have done more work on, say, like the front end menus. Some have done more work on like the back end, like server infrastructure, or the front end like gameplay systems. So we generally try to make sure it gets assigned to the right developer who has experience with the system where we think the bug is going to be. And they'll obviously look at it, and I mean, there's the other side too. Quite often, because the version that we have of the game right now is ahead of what the public has. Because we don't stop working when we put a new version out. We keep working. There's new things are being developed all the time. So one of the hardest parts too is sometimes there'll be a bug that comes in that we actually can't reproduce on the current live version of the game. So then it's a question of, well, hang on, have we accidentally fixed this? Is it just not a bug anymore? Do we have to reproduce it in a different way? So that generally will get handed back to QA saying like, hey, can't repro like on the current main branch. Like, then QA will go back and see if they can do it there. And there's a lot of back and forth that will happen. Generally speaking, to actually answer your question, if it was a bug that was critical, the game crashes every time I play a gluttony, like something of that sort of level, that's going to seriously impact the player experience for anyone. I mean, not gluttony because he's my boy, but besides that,
yeah, gluttony's cool.
Yeah, a patch for something like that, or like a hot fix. What we would actually do is all of our development versions, we would actually roll back to the current live build. Mm-hmm. We would fix it there, and we would release that as a patch. So you would basically get a new version of the game go out that wouldn't have any of the new stuff we've worked on. It would just be like, hey, we're going to fix this one bug, full stop. And then we would, push that out basically, and then look at merging that back in to the current like live dev branch and stuff like that. But sure. Generally speaking, if it's not something which is critical, then basically, we're generally we'll fix it, but we're going to wait until we've got the rest of the patch ready to go.
I mean, I think probably the bug on the percentage values for the card packs is probably one of those ones you're talking about. It's a UI type bug where they're just mismatched or something like that.
That's all. Like I said, that's all fixed in dev. And it's actually fixed. We're looking at fixing it in a way that all that data gets moved to the backend server. So that if there is ever an issue with that later on, we can basically just update the server and not need to update the client as well. So that's the other thing. When we are looking at fixing these sort of things, we also think forward and go, all right, cool. Like, will these percentages potentially change in the future? Well, they might. So this would actually allow us to change that and not have to update the UI and actually push a full client build through. In the same way that we can roll out like news updates, tournament updates, and stuff like that. Actually, it reminds me, someone mentioned there was a spelling mistake in the upcoming tournaments. Here you go. This gives you an idea of how quick we can fix things. Vengeance. Is it E? I think I've spelled vengeance wrong. Have I?
EA, I think.
EA. Okay, so
NGS.
EA. Cool. There you go. So if anyone jumps in the logs in right now, that bug is now fixed. So yeah, that's the thing. we try to build systems that we can fix things like that wherever possible. It may mean it takes a bit longer to fix the bug itself, but when it means, when there is issues, I can't spell basically. Although I'm sure I copy and paste that off BlueMit, so I reckon James is trolling me here a little bit. Yeah, we try to make sure we fix it in a way that makes it as easy for us to work with the system moving forward.
Sure. Mate, just another question for Nemesis. Based on the current projections, I mean, how many players does the project need to be, say, profitable and self-sustaining? Do you have a metric on that?
It's an interesting question. And again, this is what I did for a living for a very long time. It's not as straightforward as we need 800 players. Because the issue you run into is as you gain, you're assuming that every player we onboard will have the same what we call LTV, lifetime value, across the game. And then you're assuming that of those players that do generate revenue, and a large percentage won't, that their ARPDAU will be the same. So ARPDAU is average revenue per daily active user. So it's basically, they're two different metrics. LTV is looking at, if we bring a user in, we expect them over their life in the game to generate X number of dollars. Whereas ARPDAU is more looking at where they spend money throughout like their journey. And ARPDAU is a really interesting metric because you can actually look at it in terms of, if you break every player down in terms of, okay, when they first start playing, then like day 1, day 2, day 3, you can actually really specifically see like, okay, cool, like the average player, if they're going to spend, they start spending on, say, day 7. If they start spending on day 7, then they're going to spend this much LTV. Whereas they don't start spending till day 14, day 30, stuff like that. Like the LTV pattern will change. And again, we map all this on the back end to get an idea of like projected revenue and such. At this stage, I would say that the number of users we have at the moment obviously is not high enough for where we would like it to be right now. There's a variety of issues contributing to that. Probably the biggest one just being that the Web3 market is really not where any of us would like it to be right now as well. Bringing new players into a Web3 game is very difficult. Hence why we're focusing on trying to bring in Web2 players as much as possible for that. Because the Web3 market is just not an ideal time to be launching a Web3 TCG. But yeah, it really will come down to more where we are able to find and acquire sticky users. And at the end of the day, the goal of user acquisition is not necessarily monetization. The focus is much more on engagement and retention. If we can bring in, tens of thousands of players who stick around, who play the game on a daily basis, that's great. Working out the best way to monetize those users to generate like a healthy, ongoing, recurring revenue model, that part's easy. The hard part is getting the users in the door and keeping them in the first place. So our focus is always going to be, especially at this point of a game's life cycle, our focus will be much more on engagement and retention as opposed to monetization. And you'll see that quite a lot. There's a lot of games, if you even just like in Web2, if you look at a lot of games that maybe do like early access, or especially on mobile, this is a big thing very much on mobile as well, where like the early versions of a game will have zero monetization whatsoever. They'll actually will launch the game sometimes under a different title, sometimes not, but there'll be no ads, there'll be no in-app purchase, there'll be nothing like that, because it allows the team to get a baseline metric in terms of engagement and retention. And then once you've got that data flowing in the system, and like, okay, cool, like, 40% of our users stick around for day 1, 20% stick around for day 7, or whatever it happens to be, then you can design your monetization strategy around your average user. Whereas at the moment, because we're still a relatively low like player population, we're still like only in like the thousands. It's not really enough data for us to be able to look at and go, okay, like this is the ideal way for us to monetize long term. So we're sort of we're still in a data gathering stage and a user gathering stage as well. And like the strategies we will use could change drastically. We may realize, cool, we get, for some reason we go viral in Brazil, as a pure example. And it's like, cool. Well, the way I'm going to monetize, players from Brazil is drastically different to how I would choose to monetize players from, say, Germany, as just a very high level example. So yeah. Do we have the number of players I would like at the moment? No. Are we doing everything we can to increase that? Yes. Will we be able to monetize those users? Yes. But how we will do that will depend on where those users come from and what their play patterns are like, how they choose to engage with the game, and so forth.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's obviously where your experience and the team's experience comes into being. Get the numbers and then work out how to best utilize them after that.
Yeah, the goal in free to play is to just get people playing the game. It's why we've said literally from right back when we were when we announced like our partnership with Epic, right back when we were like on the AVAC stand at GDC. Oh, there you go, I'm wearing the GDC shirt. Our goal is user acquisition. Our goal is to bring in millions of people and show them a really great fun game. That not to pedestal, but like that should be the goal of any game, whether it be Web 2 or Web 3. Give people a fun experience they want to come back to day after day, and revenue is almost a byproduct of that. If you go the other way around, if you design a product to make money, we saw it with Axie, we've seen it with a lot of Web3 and even Web2 products, then quite often you're just not going to be able to build that player population you need to actually create that sustainable, ongoing ecosystem.
Yeah, of course, makes sense. I mean, the Raini team, if nothing, has always been considered from the very beginning, doing those things that with the end goal in mind of success, and basically making sure that everything is sort of geared around that final goal, really, and doing things in the best way possible. So that's cool. Like with regard to players and things like that, and the new players coming in and playing against other players, you have mentioned this before, but there's questions in the chat here about new modes coming. Are there any new modes coming, like a theme deck only queue, ranked, and so on? I know you've spoken about that in the past. That obviously we don't have enough players at the moment, so we've just got to throw them all in together.
I mean, I would love to do have ranked casual theme deck and and such in our quick match mode. The honest answer is we just don't have the player population to support it at this stage. Having said that, we are hoping obviously things like the World Championship, which is a big push for us to bring people into the ecosystem, will help with that. Which is obviously why we have there's 4 different types of tournaments running through the World Championships, and you can actually start playing those modes yourself now if you want to. If you go into the lobby, they're all there ready to go. The only one that's disabled by default is the open format, which is where you can use any card regardless of ownership. That will only be turned on at very specific times. But yeah, I mean, again, working out which modes we would want to support, a lot of that will come down to the results we see from the World Championships. If theme deck tournaments happen to be the biggest tournaments we run, then quite possibly then we'll actually add a theme deck queue in next to our current ranked queue, create its own leaderboards for it, create its own reward structure and such. So yeah, it's a lot of it's looking at which ones players choose to engage with. Draft or limited style modes are something that's again you would need the player population to support. It's also something to keep in mind that depending on the sort of users we bring into the game, if we're bringing more casual gamers in, draft is probably one of the hardest modes for a new player to get in and experience, because you have to have a really good knowledge of the entire. There's so much knowledge you need to play a draft format as opposed to say theme deck or even constructed. Constructed is one of the easier formats in 2023. Or recently, thanks to the internet, people just net deck the shit out of it anyway, and we know that. So it's and you've got obviously awesome sites like Planet Rainy that will help with with decks and deck ideas. So yeah, as much as I personally enjoy limited formats and things like draft, it probably wouldn't be the first new game mode we would lean towards. We would be much more likely to do, say, a single player story based mode, or one that we've been playing around with a bit internally, just from a design perspective, like a gauntlet style mode. So you basically, with the gauntlet mode, and please give us feedback on this, either like Telegram, Discord, like let us know your thoughts. This is literally just a design idea we've got at the moment. So in a gauntlet queue, you have to own all 7 theme decks. You start playing with whichever theme deck you want, and obviously if you win, you can keep going. When you lose, that theme deck is like knocked out of your pool, and you have to play with one of the other ones until basically you've gone through all 7 theme decks. Similar to like limited modes in other games, like I know MTG Arena does this, or Hearthstone does this, based on how many wins you get with those decks, would be like the reward structure that you sort of get paid out. But yeah, it's basically the idea of how do we do those sort of limited style modes with like smaller like reward systems, but have it still be open and approachable to newer players. And yeah, I would say theme decks probably make more sense than draft for that. But again, definitely open to feedback on what everyone thinks and how everyone would feel about a mode like that.
What's a storyboard mode for a single player? That sounds interesting.
So if we're doing something like that, that would be very similar to, I can't remember what Hearthstone calls them, but basically where they have, like, you basically be playing against AI, and it would be like a series of like games that you play in order, most likely with decks that we set up for both yourself and your opponent, with like a narrative sort of linking them all together.
Okay.
So the really interesting thing
cool.
yeah, the cool thing that opens up, one, it allows us to explore the lore of RTLOL more, which is great.
Yep.
But it also allows us to break rules where we want to as well. So, you know, in a story-based game mode, we could write a story about how you're, you know, leading a horde of kitsunes or something, and we could literally give you a deck which was nothing but kitsunes and auroras as an example, or something, you know, something like that, bull markets or something. Against an opponent who has a deck of nothing but cold storages and blockfathers. So it allows us to create some really interesting like gameplay situations for players, where we can break the rules. Like we can let you have a deck with just 40 generals, for example, against someone who just has like, I don't know, nothing but like you could play against someone who has a deck that is nothing but Elons. So they do nothing for the first 10 turns, and then they just drop an Elon every turn. So there's, yeah, doing those sort of single player narrative based experiences are interesting because it allows us to just create some sort of gameplay situations and some experiences that we just can't do, or I don't say can't do, but would choose not to do in a ranked competitive format. While again being open and accessible to newer players as well.
It's just another avenue for a single player to sort of get into the game and have some fun without having necessarily to compete against top players and things like that. If they didn't want to, they can just sort of be a little bit insular and sort of play through a storyboard mode, and just have some fun basically with the game.
Yeah, for sure.
That sounds good.
Yeah, and keep in mind as well, like we have a fair few players at the moment who don't play online games. We have players who just play bot matches. We have players who just fool around in practice mode and stuff like that. Like there are players who have unlocked like all the 7 theme decks and they just play them basically against the bots. There are players that enjoy that, so which is fine. I mean, that's great. Like, you know, at the end of the day, it's not my job to tell you how to enjoy the game. It's your job to tell me how you enjoy the game, either through the data or through Telegram, I guess. And for us to design the experiences we create around what the player population wants to see. One of the most refreshing things for any game designer is actually just looking at how players choose to enjoy what you create and put out there. You know, Minecraft originally wasn't meant to be like a building-based game. It was meant to be like an exploration RPG. And then obviously creative mode completely changed how players enjoy the game. So it's always refreshing to see how players choose to enjoy the game. What decks they build, what gameplay they like, stuff like that. And we'll always be trying to design the best experiences to suit what our player population wants to see.
Actually, just thinking out of the box, I suppose, but a lot of, like, even Minecraft and things you mentioned, a lot of these games that are out there that are very popular, at some point allow other people or players to create other games based on their games. So, I mean, I could have fun and create a lore situation with Raini Lords of Light where I say, okay, you are this, and there's going to be an AI or whatever that I've created that's going to attack you relentlessly with just this. Your objective is to survive for 5 minutes or something like that. Could the game does it have the capability of having players create their own stuff at some point in the future?
Yeah, so that's what we refer to as UGC, or user-generated content. It's a big buzzword at the moment. But I mean, yeah, you could look at Minecraft and Roblox as some of the biggest games in that genre, where the experiences they actually enable are created by the users themselves. Fortnite is moving in that space with their,
Yep,
what do they
most
call it?
definitely.
Not creative mode, but whatever they just launched, where like you basically get like a cut down version of Unreal Engine
Yeah.
to build experiences in Fortnite with.
Yep.
They were talking about that at GDC actually. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, UGC is huge. Could the game support that? Sure, because we basically, we've built our systems in such a way that we can add new experiences in. So the rules of our game, for example, are like a standalone little like game mode, and we can, theoretically, we can make a copy of that, change something, and then you just pick which game mode you want to actually play in. Which is kind of how we support, theme deck mode and construct like the different like lobby modes and stuff like that. Um, Once you make that user facing, one, again, you need to have a large enough player population to support that. It's a lot of work to build UGC style systems. You also have to make sure there's no way for someone to exploit what you're putting out there. Whereas with like a single, if you download a mod for say Skyrim, for example, that changes the game drastically, that's not terrible because it's a single player experience. You're only going to really affect that person who has chosen to download the mod. When you're talking about like UGC in a multiplayer context, there's a lot more work you need to do to make sure that you're still creating a fair, fun experience for everyone involved. The most common example of that I remember was back in the era of like Warcraft 3 custom maps, and probably StarCraft 2 and such like that as well. People would take like a custom map or a custom game. Like this is how Dota started. This is how tower defense became a thing. Was like originally from these older like custom modes for RTS games. Although Dota started from the original StarCraft 1. Can't remember what it was called, but yeah, it was a mod back then. What used to happen? People would take the map, open up the editor, change it so like player 1 or player 2 had just like a huge advantage. Maybe just had more gold or something like that, and then would just upload the map and just people would play it. And because it looked the same, there was no systems in the back end to sort of make sure if there was no concept of is this the official map or the valid map. You'd go in and you just get stomped because the person was running like a hacked version of the map basically. So, and again, you could go, oh, that's that's just affecting one person's experience. It is, but if that's a really bad experience and that person like quits and never comes back, well, that's actually directly hurt our efforts to onboard and engage users into the game in the first place. So yeah, UGC is cool. It's a big thing that we would love to do at some point down the road, but yeah, it's like, if we're talking like how much development effort it would take to implement a system like that, where we're in the months to years length of time. Like it's not a quick thing to sort of to implement, unfortunately.
Sure.
Now, having said that, if there were any players who wanted to go and create their own new game using like your Rainy NFTs or something like that, or you wanted to create a whole new experience, or and you wanted access to the card art, or you wanted advice on how to work with our NFT contracts to pull them into your own game or something like that, go for it. Like that's the great thing of Web3. That's the great thing of true player owned assets. Like these are not our cards that you happen to have an account to use. I mean, they are in a soulbound context, but when we're talking like your collectible cards, your Web3 cards, they are yours. We've already, I mean, I've sent through all the raw assets to like to the person working on Planet Rainy. If any of the community members wanted those to create their own game, please let me know. I'll literally just link it all across to you straight away. They are your assets to do what you want with. Like that's the ultimate expression of actual true player ownership. If if I have, wow, for once I don't have any Magic or Pokemon cards on my desk for once, but like if I had a stack of physical trading cards, whether it be Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever, and myself and a bunch of people go, you know what, we're going to work out our own game with these cards. that's up to us. And that game could theoretically become more popular than the original like Magic or Pokemon game. Like we've seen it happen with Magic with the rise of the Commander format. Commander started out, it used to be called Elder Dragon Highlander. It was basically just a fun extra game that people sort of built decks around that you'd play like after tournaments, and like judges used to play it a lot and stuff like that. It was just a fun multiplayer format. That's now become like arguably one of the biggest forms of Magic. So yeah, like if players wanted to go and create their own experience, I'll let you guys know it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, making games. But if you want to do that, go for it, and we will within reason we will help you to actually enable that as well.
It's just a question, I suppose. If Chris has to go or he's not available, but just the RST launch and the RST Battle Pass, how are we running with that? Are we close?
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, Chris, you probably have more details around the specific time frame for RST.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for anyone who missed it, the RST contract is live. The token's been created. We've done a bunch of locking. We actually have the Raini to RST like migration bridges all set up and operational, except for like some front end like stuff that we're trying to fix with the RPC endpoint on all three chains. So Phantom, BNB, and Ethereum. We have the X Photon redemption pools pretty much ready to go. We have the direct staking for RST on Beam to earn rainbows pretty much ready to go. We have a temporary RST LP staking pool, which will operate similar to what we've got now with like earning unicorns and some X Photon. We had a chat about it and decided to do that instead of the airdrop that we were talking about previously. It just makes it a lot simpler, and because gas is so cheap on Beam, that is something that we're just spinning up. It's pretty similar to a lot of the other stuff we've built. So I think there's one change to the code that our senior blockchain dev has to make, and then that'll be ready. And the store has been like a big focal point. All the ways that you can spend RST, including the Rainiverse Battle Pass and the conversion to Lux. I think we are, based on chats with everyone, we're like 70-80% done with the store stuff. We still need to do some finalization to bring that out. That's kind of the state of affairs. Yeah, you won't have seen anything because, like I was saying earlier, for a number of reasons, we just want to have it all online, thoroughly tested, before we get people to start using it and announce it to the public. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So I would say, I mean, it's hard to give a time frame just because there's two schools of thought here. You can either be intentionally conservative and allow for like unforeseen bugs with like a new contract and a new chain and things, and then people get upset that it's too far in the future, or you can like be intentionally ambitious and say if we don't encounter any of these bugs, which does happen sometimes, then it should be done by here. Maybe we just take the middle point. I would say we should be able to have that online this month, no matter what. But I'm hoping to have it online within the next 1 to 2 weeks. We're pretty close to getting a whole bunch of stuff launched and announced to the public. So it's pretty close.
1 to 2 weeks for having RST in place and all the things that come with that, basically, is what we're
Yeah,
sorry.
like
At best,
the vast majority of the Web3 stuff, we're hoping to have in the next couple of weeks, and then almost all of it by the end of September. I think there are a few things that might take a little bit longer than that. So there's some complications with the long-term LP staking contract because it has to interact with magnifiers. So that's why we're doing the temporary one as a stopgap. And then like some of the collect and earn, play and earn stuff, we might be using like a manual system until we get them up and running. But almost the vast majority of the Web3 rollout should be completed in September. So yeah, a lot of it has actually already been done. We just haven't communicated it yet.
Is it necessary for the World Cup? The World Cup could proceed as planned even if that didn't come into being, for example?
Yeah, they're two completely independent things. I think the only, I guess, area that the World Cup might come into play is for issuing Web3 rewards. As like an early heads up for our community, we're recommending that community members use their own wallets if they've got them, or set up wallets if they haven't, so you have full control and full custody. We always recommend that highly, but we do have the option to issue Web3 rewards to players who haven't set up their wallet into like a custodial solution. And that'll still be usable in game. If it's like a promo card, you'll be able to use it in game. You just won't be able to transfer it out until Merit Circle build out some more functionality towards the end of the year. But aside from that, all of the events themselves, they aren't relying on the Web3 rollout at all. They're just a discrete independent tournament like we've done for all the previous ones.
Yeah, just the issuing of Web3 type prizes potentially, but you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah,
All right,
obviously, yeah, Rainy vs Battle Pass is just waiting. Like considering that's only able to be purchased with RST, that's all ready to go. We just need RST to be able to like switch that on, basically.
Yeah. All right. Sweet. Just a couple of questions from Nemesaur. When the Lucky Door prize winner announcements for the Chad Doge and the announcement of the Aurora giveaway winner?
Yep, we'll get those sorted this week alongside the Season 0 rewards.
Lovely. They've also asked any news about the new game. Again, obviously you're focused 100% on Rainy Lord's Light at the moment, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, the honest answer is I know it's on like the Rainy.io site, which is probably why we're getting questions around it. It's a very low priority at the moment compared to RTLOL. So it's probably, I wouldn't say it's like on hold at the moment, but it's very much still in the pre-production phase where we're just gonna like put our efforts into RTLOL, and then as we have excess resources, so as we have like developers, for example, that don't have anything to do on RTLOL, once we get to that sort of stage of the game, which is we're nowhere near that when you consider we've got mobile localization, formations, world champion. Like there's so much still happening at the moment. Then as we can sort of start moving resources over, that will sort of start picking up again.
Yeah, like it's probably going to be the beginning of next year. Right now we're just focusing on RTLOL, and we've got a pretty full quarter ahead to get everything we want done. I think mobile and localization open up a lot of markets to us, so those are pretty big priorities. And we've already invested 2.5 years into this game. It makes sense for us to leverage that as much as possible rather than invest resources into a brand new game from scratch.
100%. That makes sense. Yep. No trouble. Okay. I mean, there's questions, Chris. I don't know if you said you sort of might need to go, but there's just other questions about upcoming formations pack and launch of the heroes and things like that Marty could probably.
If it's game side, then I might jump off. I've just got some urgent calls to make, but awesome to see you guys.
All the rest of the game side. Yep.
Yeah, thanks heaps for helping run it, Ray. Thanks for answering most of the questions, Marty, as always. Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one, everyone who signed in.
Yeah, Marty, just whether you're able to give any information about the formations pack and the launch of the heroes, if you know.
Heroes is a Chris question. He's been looking after all that side of things.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I'll get an answer for that and I'll throw it in Telegram. Formations, we're probably pushing it back to late October, early November, mostly so there's no overlap across the World Championships around that, because that would obviously, so there's two sides to that. One, it would be really confusing if, imagine if for the grand final we added a whole new set into the meta. As much as I would love to see that from a design perspective, I don't think that's fair on players that would be like qualifying for the grand final and then have to play like a different format in the grand final. Formations will most likely be pushed back slightly. But basically you'll notice in the Lux tier of the Battle Pass, I think it's only the Lux tier. There might be one in the free tier as well. I can't remember. You will start unlocking some formation packs. They won't be openable until the set is released. So that's basically just our way of like teasing of what's coming, basically. But you'll see them there in the packs page of the client, and it'll have a little message saying like can't be opened yet, basically.
And Nemesaur just asked, is there any bullish news in this dark bear market?
Yeah, I'm playing pickleball and really enjoying it.
Nice.
It's a great fun way to get active. Just don't call it mini tennis, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Oh, that's good news.
Mm.
I mean, really, I mean, from my own perspective, crypto in general as an industry is inevitable. I mean, it's the alternative to what we currently have with with governments and fiat money and things like that, which is taking the world nowhere. I mean, crypto is the future financial system from what I see. So really, it's just a matter of time until we get some good sentiment back in the market. But I think the next bull market is going to be very interesting,
Mm.
and it's going to play in line, I think, with a lot of changes that are coming in the real world. Anyway,
As to when that will be,
yeah, that's right, unknown,
yeah,
but it will come for sure.
yep.
There's a lot of stuff in the chat here, but I think it's just generally people just chatting amongst themselves and the thing through
Yep.
there. If you can find anything that's actually questions.
Yeah, there's some discussion there around like XP and that, which we touched on earlier. So we are looking at the data for that.
Yeah.
One thing I will mention, you don't want to have 100 levels in a battle pass, because when players are earning things, you don't want to go to an extra digit in a number if you can help it. In the same way, when it's when it's something that someone is trying to achieve, that extra like if I said to you, there's 50 levels in the battle pass, in your head that is easier to achieve than there are 100 levels in the battle pass, without any other context. But then you can also flip that around the other way, depending on if you're talking about rewards, and would you rather get a reward of 50 coins or 500 coins? Even if we change the cost of everything where the actual coins have the same value between the two, if you're rewarding people, big, or if you've got, say, minions in the game, big numbers good. If it's something that someone has to achieve, big numbers bad. So yeah, just that's something to just keep in mind when you are, obviously players are discussing things around the battle pass at the moment. Yeah, I would be highly unlikely we would increase it. I know some of the suggestions like, oh, why don't we just double everything so it's 100 levels, but you achieve more levels. Yeah, we would much rather try to work out a way that if the context is around wanting to achieve a level a day and we're not quite there yet, maybe we need to look at just some tweaking around the XP systems to achieve that.
Yeah, and like as you said, even if you're able to have an XP weekend or something, a special bonus sort of weekend where the XP is increased or something like that would be, fantastic, and I imagine doable from your perspective. You can
Yep.
switch that in pretty quickly. If people are struggling. So I personally like the XP on the daily and weekly quests. I think that's great. But obviously, as you said, you guys are watching always in the back end and tweaking as needed. So, maximizing everything wherever we can. That's great. I think that's sort of it, mate, that I can see from the questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. So yeah, I guess as we sort of started, high level, everything's going well. Mobiles and coming along nicely. We're all set for the World Championship. Everything's ready to go for that. You can start preparing for that by using the lobby mode to practice those specific game modes. And yeah, the team's keeping an eye on the XP and the Battle Pass system, and we'll make any changes as needed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Have a good week, everyone. And yeah, we'll catch you back here next Tuesday. Obviously, keep an eye on our socials. If we do any other Twitter spaces this week, some of them do pop up very last minute. So yeah, just keep an eye on our Twitter, our Telegram, stuff like that. We'll announce them there with as much notice as we can. But I know like one of the ones last week, it was literally like, hey, there's a big Twitter space in an hour. Do you want to be on it? It's like, well, yeah, of course we do. So yeah, we'll be doing a lot more of those as we move forward as well.
Cool. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Catch you all. Have a good week.
See you guys.